Hey, visibility hackers, welcome to this week's episode of The Showcase. I'm your host, Coach Molly from Visibility Hacking Studios, and today we are talking about building strong communities through live stream. And I'm going to show you a pretty awesome example that falls along the same lines as our characters here on the showcase. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Today, we are talking about the one and only Emily. I should say Emily D. Baker. I should bring up this screen, shouldn't I? Emily D. Baker is one of my favorite live streamers. She is a YouTube prodigy. She is a tech nerd, and she is changing the game when it comes to live streaming and content creation. And I want to highlight some of the things that she's doing on her channel that are really fantastic that you can start bringing into your content creation process as well. So let me tell you a bit more about her. Emily D. Baker is a former prosecutor from LA, from California. She is an avid tech nerd. She is a mom, a wife, and there's so much more about her that we will talk about in just a little bit. But the way that I was drawn to her content is that she was covering the trials of certain celebrities. Certain internet celebrities, certain television and reality show celebrities, and even movie stars. And what she would do is she takes the content, the legalese, and what's happening in the trial, and what are these motions, and what is all this happening, and she cuts through the BS and explains it in layman's terms. So making these celebrity trials more accessible to the general public. And I think that's really a great way to meet a larger, broad market with much more specific niche down information. And she's built a huge community around her. So I want to highlight some of these really cool things that she's doing. So let me just bring up everything here. Let's start with her website because I think this is pretty cool. So Emily D. Baker is everyone's favorite legal analyst. She covers celebrity topics. So right now she's covering Britney Spears and her conservatorship and the end of that conservatorship and all of the suing that's happening after that. She covered the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, which we'll talk about in just a second. She covers the Real Housewives trials and so much more. She's pretty fantastic. She's incredibly purple, and I am so incredibly drawn to her. Her podcast has had over 1.11 million downloads. She has more than 200, or actually more than 650 YouTube subscribers now. She's huge on all of these different platforms, and it's because she has focused on building her community, and that's what I want to talk about today with you. So if we head over to her YouTube channel, we can see that she's got a variety of different types of content. So first, let's talk about types of content. She breaks down different cases. So she looks at this celebrity case that's happening and she gives you a roads thus far. She explains what's been going on. She explains all the important things that you need to understand so that when you're having conversations with your friends and family about these celebrity cases, you'll actually have some basis in legal knowledge. She does a ton of live streaming. She also has a lovely members only community, and they are given, as a member in the members only community, you're able to get access to exclusive live streams as well. She also is incredible at leveraging other people's platforms, or OPP as we call them. This is where she is sharing her voice, her expertise on other people's shows. Whether she was on Fox News, she was on Inside Edition, ABC, she's on so many different platforms, and she's really starting to get her name out there. When it comes to establishing your expertise, she's built herself a stage. If we look at the frame, here we can see that she has, let's just go through all of them. She understands how she can serve value. She understands that there's a disconnect between legal information and the general public. So she's built her bridge, built her stage to be that bridge. Step 2 is aligning your message with your audience. She clearly has done that. Why? Because she understands that her audience is pretty much the friends that she would be sitting around the TV watching reality shows with. Those are the kinds of friends and kinds of people within her community. So she speaks to that. She explains the law stuff to people who are not lawyers, but she uses the context of celebrity in order to build that bridge again. Step 3, a branded experience. Absolutely. She's got great branding. Step 4, she hypes up every single one of her episodes. It is big. She does micro content launches. She has a regular schedule so her people know to show up, and so she doesn't have to do the big live launching every episode. Great job. Step 5 is engaging show content and interviews, and that is what we're going to dive into a lot more today. So when it comes to her content specifically, I want to talk about something that recently happened. As many of you know, Johnny Depp and his ex-wife Amber Heard have been in this very public court case. The case was streamed live online for 5-6 weeks. And what Emily D. Baker did was she showed up every single day of those trials. So it was Monday to Thursday, like 10-hour days, 11-hour days she was streaming. And she was covering the live footage and giving commentary throughout. Fantastic. So yes, it's going to serve value to people who are already in her community. But what we didn't realize was how big of a boost her trial coverage was going to create. And so I want to focus on how big of a boost this went. She gained hundreds, plural, of subscribers just over the course of that trial, which is fantastic because she was able to really hit the algorithm with a topic that's interesting and provide a ton of value by streaming every single day. And no, I'm not saying you need to stream every single day, but when you have an opportunity that shows up within your niche, jump on it. Because what Emily did was she jumped on it and it served her brand spectacularly. I think that's the right word. So let's talk about some things in her world, in the community that she has built. She has an amazing way of naming her people. So there's insider lingo and insider naming that we talk about in the visibility hacking world. And we talk about swag, and swag being not just stuff with your name on it, but being really purposeful, being what we like to call your armor, your golden party armor. And that is done so well in Emily's world. As you can see here, this is what she calls the law nerd shop. First off, anyone in her community, you are referred to as law nerds. We know that there is a super psychological trick that happens when we're able to give our people a sense of belonging within the community. So Emily does that incredibly, and we're going to talk a bit more about that later on in today's episode. But I want you to know that the people who hang out on Emily's channel, she calls them, and they call themselves law nerds. And the law nerds have a shop. And this is where they can take on pieces of the community, sayings from the community, and bring them into their own lives. Mark and call themselves from this community. So here we have the objection hearsay. This was an inside joke that came out of the Johnny Depp trial. Wow. Again, coming back to the impact that trial had on her community. We can see when Johnny Depp talked about the incident on the bed, if you were watching the trial, and he referred to it as a grumpy. Well, of course, the law nerds are going to create a grumpy mug and a grumpy sticker. They have their slogans, they have their logos, and we can place them on our shirts. We can put them on stickers. We have a place to put on our armor and call ourselves law nerds. When we build this kind of community, we know that our people are more likely to stay with us and they're more likely to help grow that community overall. The other cool thing I want to share with you is something super nerdy. I love watching Emily D. Baker because not only is she a brilliant lawyer, a brilliant legal communicator, but also she is fantastic at the game and the hustle behind digital marketing. And she has been doing an incredible job marketing her own brand. And so, one thing that she did was she looked around and looked at other experts and looked at other influencers and asked, "What are they doing that I can do in my own community, in my own live streams, in my own digital marketing presence for my brand?" And what she did was she looked at two of the biggest, the one and only Mr. Gary Vee and the YouTube commentator, I guess we could call him, Philip DeFranco. And the two of those, there's something that the both of them have in common that Emily was like, heck yeah, I want in on this as well. And both of them have what's called a text crew or a text line where you're able to have back and forth communication via SMS messaging. This is game changer, my friends. Let me show you what it looks like. So when you head over to textemily.com, you're given this awesome page here. This is where you can add Emily's contact into your phone, and then you can get alerts for every time she goes live. She literally sits there on her phone and texts out to her community. It's actually her. It's not a bot. It's not pre-written communications. It's actually her sitting there communicating with you guys and letting her community know that she's going live. It's an awesome way of connecting with your community. And if you want your own text line, head over to my.community.com. You can purchase a subscription. They're looks like a new and evolving platform. They won't give you prices. They won't let you sign up for anything until you get on a call with one of their reps. But it is for larger size communities. But of course, get on a call with their reps and see if you can convince them otherwise. Convince them that smaller creators deserve good platforms as well. But the reason I wanted you guys to see this text line is because when you're building out your own content, when you're building out your own community, we've talked so often about the importance of building an email list. But what we're seeing now is that the trends of opening emails is getting lower and lower and lower. The likelihood of people actually opening your emails is far lower than it was 5 years ago, which in turn, if you're a pro at email marketing, you've then switched your strategy and now you're emailing people every day, maybe multiple times a day, just in case they'll open one of your emails. I say this as someone who hates junk mail. I check my email once in a while, and when I do, it's thousands of pieces of junk mail in my main email folder. Not even to mention the auto filters that are going on that are putting more and more of that junk mail into different folders. And so what we're seeing is that people are turning away from their email and instead they're focusing on their connections on their text messages. Text message open rates are incredible, especially comparing them to email. So what Emily's doing fantastically is noticing that her community is text-based. I haven't seen a space other than purchasing from her store where you actually put in your email address. And I really, really appreciate that. The notifications that she sends out are always timely. They're always important. They're never just popping in to say hi. So I really, really appreciate that. And I want you to think about that in terms of your business. Are you creating that email list? First of all, I'm not saying don't create the email list. You have to create the email list. But also on top of that, are you collecting phone numbers? Are you connecting with your people via text? Just a question for you guys. Now let's look at what an Emily stream looks like, because we want to talk about branding quick. So this is a very great example of Emily D. Baker. So she is a huge streamer. She has a huge community behind her, and she's really niched down, like celebrity, law, commentary. That's who Emily D. Baker is. But what she does is she streams her entire show through StreamYard. Just saying. She has a producer, she streams it through StreamYard, and even her graphics are as simple as possible. Like if I was her show designer, I would create a completely different look, a lot more in-depth graphics, a lot more pizzazz. But what I'm saying is you don't actually need that. If you have a good connection, if you have a deep enough connection to your people and you understand what their needs and wants and desires are, and you can serve them up that information, you don't need fancy, crazy graphics and intros and videos and all of that stuff. She has a very simple intro. And then what we see here is a simple background image. She has her logo in the StreamYard logo section, which is something I never do because it's never big enough. It's never bold enough. You never have enough control over it. And we see that she is using the simple StreamYard layouts. That's it. Nothing fancy. This is what I would consider a level 2 show. Level 1 would be just showing up and just talking for the first time. This would be a level 2 show where you have very simple graphics, very simple layout. Now you get to my show and you have a little bit more complicated graphics, intros, outros, etc. So Emily D. Baker, super successful, isn't using the craziest stuff, she doesn't even have a second monitor. Just putting it out there. She does her entire show with one monitor, and she's been able to be really successful. So if you think that not having the right technology is what you're leaning on as your excuse for not getting started, well, take it from Emily. You don't need any of that stuff to get started and to be awesome. So keeping that in mind. Now we have to talk about something that moves me emotionally when it comes to her community. I talk so often about when you're hosting your show, whether it's you by yourself or you're having guests on, whether they're expert guests or they're potential customers, what I want you to do is show up like yourself. Show up as you. Whatever you get nerdy about, get nerdy about. Whatever you get excited about it. Have those moments of snark. Have those moments where you are just hanging out with your friends. I want that authentic you to start showing up. And no, I don't mean to throw that word around because it can lose its meaning. I want to talk about this like truly, authentically, vulnerably for a moment. And I want to use the example of what I saw in the comments and in the chat during Emily D. Baker's epic streaming of the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Because there was a huge shift in what I was seeing in the comments. Previous to the trial and at the beginning of the trial, a lot of the comments and the kind of community building commentary that was happening in the chat was wonderful. People were lifting each other up. They were saying hi to their friends. They were proud to be members of the community. It was just always a wonderful space to be. And as she started gaining exponential amounts of followers over the course of this trial, there was this beautiful moment where all these new subscribers started sharing what inspired them to join the community in the first place. So you can go watch this trial on a whole slew of different channels. You can get all these different lawyers' commentaries, non-lawyer commentary, snarky commentary, all of that. But what kept people on Emily's channel during the course of this trial was not the trial itself. What it was Emily. It was her showing up as herself, being loud and proud about having ADD and having tools that she uses in order to make her life easier, and speaking so proudly of those. She talks about her dyslexia and how she's found these awesome glasses that really help her focus. And she advocates and and pushes to her people that if you're facing difficulties like that in your life, do not let them stop you from, hey, going to law school, for example. Do not let them stop you from achieving your dreams. And it was this beautiful moment. I'm not going to cry, but seeing the number of comments of people who had doubted themselves previous to seeing her channel. In one day, there was a 10-minute break that was being taken in court, and what happened in the chat section of Emily's channel was literally brought me to tears. The number of people saying, I had always doubted myself and never thought that I was smart enough to go to law school, but you've inspired me to take the LSAT. Another person would watch and say, I'm loving your channel. I'm taking a break from studying for the bar because you inspired me to push myself to the next level. Other people getting into the paralegal field, other people applying for med school, other people applying for graduate school, all because they found a place where they could be inspired to do better, to do better. And that's the kind of community building that we can have on our live shows as well. But it only happens when we proudly show up as ourselves, when we share that wholeness of who we are with our people. We're not just here to be stuck-up lawyers. We're not just here to play a role of what we think is successful and influential and an expert looks like. Instead, I ask you to show up as you. Froggy voice, dyslexia, whatever stumbles you have in front of you, but also those moments of beauty and celebration in front of you. Like whether you're a parent or a spouse, whether you're the best big sister in the world, talk about more than just your field of expertise. Talk about what inspires you. But most importantly, when you feel the urge to get nerdy, get nerdy. Your people will love it. So that's what I got to say for today's episode of the Showcase. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to get all of the episodes of the Showcase and more, then I definitely recommend you join us for the Visibility Vault. It's absolutely free. It's kind of our own version of Netflix, and I'd love for you to check it out. You can head over to visibilityhacking.com/callingmyshot, and you can sign up there, and I'll see you on the other end. We'll see you again for the live show on Mondays, the Showcase on Tuesday nights, and of course, the best time on all of the internet, Friday night lives in the visibility hacking world. We will see you there. Until then, remember, I love you, be excellent to each other, and just go live. Your people are out there, and they are waiting for you.